One thing that's extremely interesting about Nintendo is depending on where in the world you buy one of their games, the version you play can actually differ slightly. Usually due to factors like fixing glitches, altering gameplay mechanics to make them better, or in some cases, even having a different name. This is very prevalent in the Mario franchise, where today I want to look at every regional change in each and every Mario entry, and I guarantee you'll be surprised by some of the insane differences that almost change your perception of the game entirely. Oh yeah, before we get started, my name is Copycat, and if you haven't yet, then please subscribe to my channel, hitting that bell to stay notified when I upload new videos. The very first game to be released in the series came out for the NES in 1985, which has two distinct versions, the Japanese/English and the European ones, both having their own quirky deviations. An example of this is what can be seen in the underwater sections of levels, as in the European version they added a block above the end pipe, I think to ensure that you could no longer glitch yourself into the wall. In the original versions, this was done by repeatedly swimming into the small gap, which will eventually clip you into one of the bricks where you can't get out. One very confusing thing about the European version of the game is that the enemies have slightly bigger hitboxes by an entire pixel, which actually makes your platforming around them much more difficult. I've heard people speculate that it might have something to do with the resolution of the PAL region's NES being a bit different, which led them needing to switch things up a bit, but this was never officially confirmed, at least from what I can see. Other than the obvious difference that the Western version of Super Mario Bros. 2 is actually a reskin of a Japanese exclusive title called Yumi Kojo Doki Doki Panic, which was an easy transition as that game was already based off of Mario mechanics, and Nintendo did this as they were worried that the sequel would be too hard, therefore too alienating for regular fans. However, there are a few interesting ones I've found across all of the versions. First off, Nintendo would eventually release the Western version of the game in Japan, and inexplicably call it Super Mario USA, which other than the title and the game's logo, it's essentially the exact same entry. There was, however, another strange version released on the Super Famicon's Satellaview Internet Accessible add-on, which is literally just the same as Super Mario Bros. 2 for the Super Mario All-Stars collection, although it was released in 4 parts over the span of March 31st to April 21st of 1996. They also changed the story a bit to make it like a sequel, even though you play through the exact same levels. But here you're also required to collect Mario statues while you do so. Not many people have experienced this game, as at the time the Satellaview sold terribly, ending up being a very short-lived project that never made it out of Japan. The final of the original trilogy is Super Mario Bros. 3 for the NES, which actually has one huge change between the regional versions, where in the Japanese you turn into Small Mario if you take damage no matter what form you were in before. This really makes things much harder for the player, as they now technically have less health points before they lose a life, meaning you're gonna have to be way more careful platforming, which in the end can be less fun. Now, the Japanese version did come out almost 2 full years before the Western release, so Nintendo must have felt like a change like this was needed. Probably because, again, they viewed Americans at that time as more of casual players that needed a crutch. Like I said earlier, the true Japanese sequel to the original was never initially released in Western markets, but was included in the Super Mario All-Stars SNES collection under the name of the Lost Levels, changing many things from its original. One of these, of course, is the graphics, which are updated to better suit this newer system, although not at the liberties of the gameplay at all. However, one major thing that was altered is how you get to the secretive worlds A to D, as in the Famicom version, you had to beat the game 8 full times to get there. Mind you, without saving to reach them. This is made way more simple in the Lost Levels, as you just need to beat the game once, and you can also save, so this is made extremely easy by comparison. Next up in this video is Super Mario World for the SNES, which changes one small thing from the Japanese to the Western version that I wish they kept in, which is Yoshi's ability to eat dolphins. These can be found only in the Vanilla Secret 3 and Chocolate Island 1 stages, and I always felt like they acted more as helpful friends than annoying enemies, needing to maneuver on their backs as they move forward, jumping in and out of the water. I'm not sure why in the Japanese version you can eat your buddies, but I guess them changing this in later releases means they were meant to be friends, not foe. But it doesn't mean that the whole situation isn't hilarious. Another very funny change between the Japanese and Western versions is what can be seen spelt out in coins in the Special World Funky level, which is just supposed to be a congratulatory message for players for even getting to that point in the game. In sort of stereotypical Japanese fashion, they completely butchered the message, which is written in English for some reason, reading, "You are super player." Which, guys, come on. I mean, I'm part Japanese, and this is something I expected from my grandparents, and not a billion-dollar company. Of course, this was fixed in the Western version to read, "You are a super player." But honestly, I can't believe this was able to slip through the cracks in the first place. But I'll give them just a bit of a leeway, as I'm pretty sure English is most of the developers' second languages, and this was well before the internet where they could easily fact check. The only difference between the regional versions of Super Mario Land 2 for the Game Boy is the title screen, as a few things were added or removed depending on which one you play. In the Japanese version, you can see that the board that holds the game's title has a cute little mushroom on the top of its borders, while also being surrounded by a sign that states, "To Mario Land," as well as a pipe that I suppose is supposed to lead there. In the international version, the title sign is being held up by 2 wooden stakes, the pipe is removed, and instead they added a few little cute mushrooms. Again, not a crazy change, just a notable one that I found interesting. The first game in the series to have 3D-based graphics is Super Mario 64 for the N64, which has some pretty notable regional changes, starting with the Jolly Roger Bay entrance painting. In the Japanese version, you can see that the painting is just a bunch of bubbles underwater, but this was switched out for a picture of a pirate ship in the international version, one I think is much better in representing what this course is all about. Apparently the bubble painting was originally supposed to be for Dire Dire Docks, and must have been added either by accident or as a placeholder and was never fixed. Another thing I was pretty surprised about is that Mario's iconic voice lines were never included in the Japanese version, where the American one was the first mainline game that Charles Martinet voiced the mustachioed man, which nowadays is inseparable from the character. The lines that were added include Mario saying "Hello" when his disembodied head greets you in the title screen, him saying "Okie dokie" when you choose which file to play, Mario saying "Let's go" when you choose a star mission in a course, him crying out "Game over" when you lose all your lives, him beginning to fall asleep saying "I'm tired" if you stay still in the same spot for too long, and finally him saying "Bye-bye" when he throws Bowser during a boss fight instead of saying "So long, gay Bowser," which quickly became controversial as many people thought he was saying "So long, gay Bowser," which now I can confidently say that he wasn't, and that would have been messed up by Nintendo. The next game to come out was Super Mario Sunshine for the GameCube, which actually has one notable change between its Japanese and international versions, in that the names of a few of the game's locations are a bit different. I think this was done to switch things up and give things a more Italian feel, as the name Dolphic Island in Japanese became Isle Delfino, Mama Beach was given the better name of Gelato Beach, Mare Bay was changed to Noki Bay, and Monty Village became Pianta Village. One change that I don't really understand can be seen when you achieve a Shine sprite, where in the version I'm used to, a prompt appears on screen that reads, "Shine." A very simple statement that cuts right to the point. Now in the Japanese version, the prompt is a bit more complex, as it states, "Shine get," taking things even one step further, but I guess the grammar is a bit awkward, so Nintendo wanted to remove it for the later versions. One very strange thing about New Super Mario Bros. For the dual screen system is that it was the first in the franchise to debut in North America instead of Japan, with Nintendo fixing a few things in that later version. This can be seen specifically in a level like World 5B, that originally had one of the star coins blocked off in a small area, only accessible by breaking one of the bricks. In the Japanese version, this was opened up completely, probably because if you duck slide into this area, there's a big chance that you can get stuck and not be able to get out without running out the timer. Other than that, there are just small fixes like filling in a few missing background features and correcting the placement of a few hidden blocks, but nothing else that was too insane. Super Mario Galaxy for the Wii is the next game we're going to look at, which doesn't have too many major differences between its versions, but does alter some of the prompts that come up when certain things happen. In the Japanese version, when you collect a star, the words "Star Get" appear on the screen, but in the American version, this is changed to "You got a star," which I feel like didn't have to happen, but again was probably done in an attempt to sound less foreign. Another thing that was changed is what comes up when you die, where in the Japanese version the words "miss" appear, and in the American it says "too bad." which in this case was probably changed for a bit more clarity. The only other thing I think that's worth pointing out is what the specific subseries is called in Korea, where for some unknown reason it's titled Super Mario Wii, and Super Mario Wii 2 for the sequel. And honestly, I couldn't find any specific reason for this odd swap, and I feel like this could have got a bit confusing as there's already a new Super Mario Bros. Wii, so maybe it has something to do with the word galaxy being taboo in Korean. I don't know, I'm not Korean, so let me know in the comments. Skipping forward all the way now to the final entry of the new Super Mario Bros. Subseries, they came out for the Wii U. There's only one regional difference that I want to discuss from it, and they changed to the POW block in the Chinese version. Now apparently for this game to be released, Nintendo had to remove any English words from the gameplay, including the word POW on the block. Replaced here with sort of backwards brackets with an O in the middle. Now, I'm not a political show, so I don't want to go too in depth with why this exactly is a thing, but let's just say their hate for the Western world runs pretty deep and is shown here. The final game we're going to look at in this video that has regional changes that are worth looking at is the absolutely massive Super Mario Odyssey for the Switch, which alters one small but still important thing in the prize that you get for completing certain hard tasks. For some reason, the Japanese version calls this prize a Grand Moon, where the rest of the world calls it a Multi-Moon, and honestly either works pretty fine in the context of what the item is used and how it functions. Alright, that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I really hope you did enjoy this one. If you did, please leave a like, comment below what you thought about it, and of course subscribe to my channel. Also, please go follow my Instagram at Copycat Gamer. There I upload some cool clips and items for my collection that you won't see anywhere else. Hope you guys all have a good day, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!